But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
In the aftermath of World War II, the United States saw the Soviet Union as a powerful nation that, by definition, wanted to spread communism across the world.
The United States knew they needed to have the best and brightest scientists working on their behalf, many of whom were working with Germany, with their work on full display during the war. These scientists were recruited in order to make the United States have the most advanced and strongest military in the world. This classified operation of moving 1,000 German scientists to the United States was approved by the Joint Chiefs of Staff in July of 1945 and was named Operation Paperclip.
It was called Operation Paperclip because the Army officers would attach a paperclip to the personal records of the scientists they wished to employ in the U.S. Isn't that right, Eric?
Exactly right, Alex. By attaching a paperclip to these files, they would covertly signal that these scientists were among the best in the world. Let's go talk to an expert in science history, Suzanne Morse, to learn more about Operation Paperclip scientists. I'm here today with an expert in science history, Mrs. Morse. Mrs. Morse, could you tell me a little more about Operation Paperclip and the scientists involved with it?
Of course, one of the most important scientists transported in Operation Paperclip was Werner von Braun. While living in Germany under the rule of Adolf Hitler, he was forced to design the V-2 rocket. However, the V-2 rocket killed 9,000 people, many of which were civilians.
Why would America hire someone who made such a devastating weapon? He sounds like a war criminal.
Now, while von Braun did design the V-2, he greatly disliked the deaths in which it resulted. Von Braun wanted his work to actually go towards space exploration. After the launch of one V-2 rocket, he even said the rocket worked perfectly, except for landing on the wrong planet.
I had no idea. Why did he become aligned with the U.S. after the war? Why not remain with Germany?
There's not an exact answer here, but he definitely didn't admire the Third Reich due to the use of slave labor. He also was arrested by the Secret Service as he had a defeatist attitude towards the war and was disappointed he was working on missiles instead of spaceships. He also heard of rumors of what the USSR did to German prisoners of war, as he didn't want to stick around long enough to find out.
That's really interesting. That's all for today. Thanks, Miss Morris.
No problem.
Now on to our next guest. Take it away, Alex.
Here we are in California, the state that houses Jet Propulsion Laboratories, a modern subsidiary of NASA and Vandenberg Air Force Base, a launch site for many rockets bound for space. Let's meet Mark Lewis, an expert in math history. I've heard a bit about Operation Paperclip and Werner von Braun. Do you have any experience with this operation?
I do. One of the most interesting parts of the program was that the USSR also had a similar operation to take German scientists to Russia.
That's interesting. Would you mind sharing more information on their program?
Well, the majority of their operation took place on October 22nd, 1946, in an operation called Operation Ozavikum. On this night, the Soviets forced the German scientists and their families to move to the USSR and aid the Soviet space program. More than 2,200 scientists were taken forcibly at gunpoint.
I had no clue that the scientists had to be held at gunpoint in order to get them to help the USSR. Was the force required for the scientists to join the United States the same?
Almost all scientists taken to the U.S. came willingly, as they did not want to be forcibly taken to the USSR. Many fled to the U.S. side after rumors circulated of what the USSR did to the German prisoners of war.
can you tell us more about the importance of the taken scientists in the math field?
Turns out I probably can. One of the scientists was Adolf Busemann, who was a master of aerodynamics and developed the swept wing design for aircraft, which revolutionized their design by allowing supersonic flight due to decreased drag.
That was so interesting. Thank you for all your time today, Mr. Lewis.
No problem, Thomas.
All right.
You guys have fun.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Lewis.
I'm expecting you to tonight.
Gather round while I sing you of Werner von Braun, a man whose allegiance is ruled by expedience. Call him a Nazi, he won't even frown. Nazi schmazi, says Werner von Braun. Don't say that he's hypocritical, say rather that he's apolitical. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. Some have harsh words for this man of renown, but some think our attitude should be one of gratitude, like the widows and cripples in old London town, who owe their large pensions to Werner von Braun. You too may be a big hero once you've learned to count backwards to 0. In German or English, I know how to count down. And I'm learning Chinese, says Werner von Braun.
Eric, why don't you tell us more about how the Germans were treated once they were taken into the United States?
Well, many of them came over to escape potential persecution, and the United States was all too happy to oblige. Thus, the United States convicted very few of the imported German scientists. In addition, their work conditions were rather favorable to help promote the scientists' work. Back to you, Alex. How did Operation Paperclip help impact America?
Well, Operation Paperclip changed our society forever. It inflated our pool of talented scientists, and that led to the creation and the many achievements of NASA.
Continue.
Well, the creation of NASA aided the United States in beating the USSR to the moon. It created an environment where education was a major priority, restored confidence in the United States government when it seemed like the US was falling behind. Eric, why don't you tell us more about the extent to which Operation Paperclip was beneficial to the United States?
Operation Paperclip ended up being a major success for the United States, even though the way they did it could be seen as very questionable. The questionable act of taking German scientists ended up paying off due to their contribution to NASA. Even though their names aren't as well known as other scientists, those from Operation Paperclip remain some of the most accomplished at their time.
Well, folks, that's all for today.
Thanks for tuning in.
Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell.
Tonight on Kitchen Nightmares. So much rice! What the hell are you doing?
ように作ります Stick your thumb in so they can tell there's a crater. Des. Punto. Make sure to put omizu in with the rice before you cook it. Not after.
Listen to me. Something you're not very good at doing. What is that? You're serving rotten food.
Move past and kill them.
Then wake up! You wake up! Shut the place down! Get out of here!